I am Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast.
But last year, I went for my first mammogram, and the doctor came back and, sat on the bed right next to me and said, "We're going to have to do some biopsies. There's some sides that are suspicious," and it was all on the right side. Next thing you know, my family doctor calls me. I just thought she was calling to follow up. She says, I'm surprised that you wanted me, to call and give you the news over the phone. And I was just like, well, I'm feeling fine. The biopsies went good, everything. And she said, well, that's not why I'm calling. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, you have breast cancer.
Hello, I'm Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. I'm here today with Jill McPherson, and we are actually going to do your story, your journey with breast cancer. Now, for a lot of the listeners, I've known you. I got to follow pretty much the whole story myself.
Yes.
And you're just a fantastic person, mom of two. Mm-hmm. How old are you, Jill?
42.
Oh, you're never supposed to ask a woman that question, but you just went right in and answered it. 42 years of age. We're going to jump right into your story, and we're going to have some commentary throughout it. But what we want to do is, as Truth Talks does, we want to go through a story. You're voluntarily giving your story to help some other woman that gets this diagnosis or a similar diagnosis, and there's just oftentimes not something that you can hold on to. You need to hear the story. You need to know what to do, where to go, where to find information, and we want to literally share your story with the world in hopes that somebody finds this, somewhat of a inspirational story, something where they can get kind of a motivation and also literally potentially even get the understanding that they need. Mm-hmm. So I want to know your story. Give it to me.
Well, but last year I went for my first mammogram. Just average, never had one before, but I was told when you hit 40, you need to have one. So I did it a year late and got in there, and next thing you know, they told me I was going to come back for a follow-up because I had nothing to compare it to. I went 3 weeks later for my follow-up just to do another mammogram to compare. And the doctor came back and, sat on the bed right next to me and said, we're going to have to do some biopsies. There's some sides that are suspicious, and it was all on the right side. Didn't quite know how to feel. I just kind of, you get that news from the doctor, you just, smile, say, okay, because I'm there by myself.
For a lot of the people out there, it's actually very common to get a call back now. Mm-hmm. They say, oh, we saw something, we need you to come back. Happened to my wife here not too terribly long ago. So explain that. Did you, at that point, when they said they saw something, we need you to come back, did you have that nervous feeling that it might be something, or had you already heard that they always call you back?
I had the nervous feeling. My mom, about 5 years ago, had a lumpectomy, and hers was estrogen-based, but she was, 69, 70, so I didn't, that's normal, I guess. From my understanding, the older you are, that,
right.
Happens. My aunt had breast cancer also. She had it twice. She died from it. So I just had that gut feeling, kind of like something was going on. So when I went back and the doctor is telling me this, I think in my mind went blank. And all I knew what to do was to smile and say, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Like, just get me out of this room, because I didn't know what to do. And I did. I called Todd, my husband, told him that there's suspicious sites and I have to get biopsies. And, being the easygoing kind of guy he is, he's like, all right, we'll take care of this. We've got this. Don't worry about it. And then, I called my mom and probably acted like I was 5 again. Just as soon as her voice came, I just started crying and told her what was going on. And she started crying and said that we'll get through it.
Did you have a feeling inside you that it probably was something?
I did.
Yeah. You kind of, it's kind of interesting about the human condition is this, sometimes we just kind of know, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you call it to people
Yeah.
closest to you.
Yes.
And they're trying to give you encouragement, but you
Yes.
don't know anything yet.
Correct.
Okay.
So for the last couple weeks until the biopsies, because, they don't happen fast. You just sit there with this knowledge of something's going on. You can't sleep. I probably drank more than I should.
Were you researching the heck out of everything too?
I tried, and then I got scared.
But yeah, because you didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Which I think that's real important that we get across that message. Dr. Google is sometimes the worst doctor in the world, worse
Yes.
than Dr. Kevorkian, as a matter of fact. But I think it's also natural instinct because when we found out there was something on my wife's that was different, I pulled every doctor card I had. I called everybody that I knew. I called the radiologist who was there. I called the doctor who was there. That's a perk of being a doctor, right? But I said, how suspicious do you feel it is and all that? I know most people don't get to do that. So you're just sitting there really not knowing what it even could be.
Correct.
So that was traumatic. So
Yeah.
you're drinking a little bit more, kind of getting into the psychological state. Tell me about that.
It was hard because I couldn't open up to anybody because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. Todd knew what was going on, and he just kind of just sat next to me. We basically didn't tell the boys anything. We just kind of kept it all in.
Were you thinking the worst?
I was trying to stay positive. Like it's nothing, I'm 41 at the time. Didn't think anything of it. But then your mind is your worst enemy.
Yeah.
It goes off on this whole nother tangent where, you're trying to stay positive, but it just brings you back. And then you're up in the middle of the night and you don't know what to do.
Was it 24/7? Was it what
Yeah.
was on your mind 24/7? Stole a lot of joy from you.
Yes.
You no matter where you go, where you're at, even people who didn't know probably knew something wasn't quite right.
Yes.
Okay, because I know you're an outgoing type person. So when they saw you, I'm sure they're like, oh,
Yeah.
what's going on?
And it was hard because Todd's brother just got diagnosed with brain cancer. And he was going through that where his life was being taken from him. And we all kind of knew the outcome and everything that was going to happen. So it was like I was trying to figure out how to hide my emotions so it didn't affect my family.
Well, at the same time, living out this nightmare in front of you, thinking that could be me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's devastating. I mean, because a lot of people, they don't have that precursor that they're watching go down. But you still, at this point, don't know anything.
True.
But the mind is just taking you to places you don't want to go.
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
And I mean, I did. I hid a lot from everybody. But then when I went in for my biopsies, and I'll never forget, I mean, the nurses and the techs were amazing. And they just, made me laugh, tried to ease the thing going on. And then when I went back because I had to go, I had 3 spots that they were looking at. And next thing you know, my family doctor calls me, or the MA calls me and says, Dr. Coombs wants to talk to you. Can you come in? And I'm at work, and I'm like, I can't miss any more time. She's like, do you want, and this is the next day after my biopsy, where they told me I would have about 48 to 72 hours till I get my results. And the MA called and said, my doctor wants to see you.
This is 24 hours later.
Yes.
So immediately did your brain go to, oh boy.
Well, I thought my doctor was calling to see how the biopsies went.
Okay.
Because they told me just to keep ice on it, everything will be fine, and we'll let you know in about 48 to 72 hours. So I didn't think anything of it. I just thought she was calling to follow up because she would make little phone calls to me.
Prior to your biopsy, were you feeling around on the right side to see if you could feel anything?
Yeah, I didn't feel nothing.
Couldn't feel anything.
Nothing.
Did you do regular breast exams up until that point? Mm-hmm. And so you couldn't feel anything?
No.
Okay.
No. And, when I told the told the MA to, just have my doctor call me after work and, we'll talk. And she's like, okay. And I remember walking to my car and she calls and she says, I'm surprised that you wanted me, to call and give you the news over the phone. And I was just like, well, I'm feeling fine. The biopsies went good, everything. And she said, well, that's not why I'm calling. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, you have breast cancer. You have 3 spots. And she gave me the centimeters, for them and everything like that. And she's like, it's breast cancer. It's on your right side.
Did you go blank?
I did. I sat in my car and I just sat there. And then it was, okay, crap. I have an appointment. I have to go. And so then luckily, so I started seeing a therapist before this because I just wanted to get my life back on track and, try to figure out how to be a good parent to my boys and not quit yelling, quit screaming at them because, boys fight and they get into their things. So I had an appointment with a therapist and I remember driving there just thinking like, what the hell is what do you mean I got breast cancer? What the hell is going to happen to me? Am I going to lose my breast? Am I going to lose my hair? Am I going to have to go through chemo? What do I have to do?
And they didn't give you any of that information. They
No.
just said, which I think there's a better way.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be a better way, right?
Yeah.
But I get it. I get that they got to let a person process that. So so now again, you're trying to self-process this information. Natural human instinct is to go to the worst option.
Correct.
Yeah. So you're there. You're heading to this therapist with worst option.
Yep, I did. I remember my therapist opening the door saying, I'm ready for you, Jill. And she just looks at me and she's like, what's wrong? And I just told her, I'm like, I have breast cancer. And she goes, do you need to go? And I'm like, I don't know what I need to do. And I haven't called Todd. I haven't done anything because it was just that, he was picking the boys up to take them home while I go to my appointment. And then, I get home. And so I was a mess. Like, I can't even recall that appointment of what I talked about or what I did. It was just that whole point of I just got diagnosed with breast cancer. Well, then you got to wait 2 to 3 weeks until you see an oncologist, which I had no idea. I didn't know where to go for an oncologist.
Yeah. Did they tell you what type of breast cancer at that point, or they just said
No.
you have breast cancer?
Yeah.
So now you've got to wait this 2 to 3 weeks.
Yes.
And you're already not sleeping just from the
Correct.
biopsy.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
So I waited my 2 to 3 weeks, and luckily my family doctor did everything for me. She set me up with the surgeon. She set me up with the plastic surgeon. She set me up with my oncologist. Like she was on the go for it because I had no idea. I didn't know what to do or even where to begin to look for an oncologist.
Right.
So my first appointment with the oncologist, he told me a little bit more about, like I think it was a stage 3 if I remember right because of the sizes. And then he told me it was a HER2 negative and said that basically it's estrogen based and that my body was producing too much estrogen and that I would have to have a mastectomy. So first it started off as a single. They were just going to do the right side, everything like that. And then he said my plan was I was going to have to do chemo and then I would have to do radiation. And he was nice about it and everything and told me kind of the process of what you need to do. And I said, okay. And he goes, we're going to get you a port put in. But first we're going to have to talk about doing a mastectomy. So I said, okay. And I went to see the plastic surgeon. The plastic surgeon told me, we'll do the right side and then, we'll try to match it up with your left. No big deal. It'll work out.
But you weren't, at this time, you hadn't researched the exact cancer that it was.
No.
So you were kind of just going, what they were telling you was like, okay, this is the route I've got to go.
I was on autopilot.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people, again, you can never satisfy everyone, right? There's always going to be people who are going to do their own thing.
Yes.
And there are people who, okay, I want to know the diagnosis, then I want to I want to go research it. I want to know if there's things I can do on my own and things I can do besides doing a mastectomy and all that kind of stuff. But in your mind, were you like, okay, they're telling me this is what I got to do, so this is the journey I'm going on? Does that sound right? Okay.
My stubborn self wanted to be like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do what I need to do, like do my own thing. But on the other hand, I went home and I looked at my boys and I'm like, I have to do what they tell me. I want to be here for them. I mean, Ethan at the time was 8. Colin was 5. It was just one of those that I couldn't leave my family. I didn't want to hold off and wait to research something where, I didn't know when I was going to end or what was going to happen.
So they're telling you all this mastectomy and all this stuff before you even had a chance to research anything.
Correct.
Okay, so you're like, okay, this is what I got to do. Okay, so he's telling you one side, and then he's saying they're gonna do both. Is that where they went?
I found out in the state of Colorado that you can do both, because if you have breast cancer on one side, you're most likely going to get it on the other side. It's just like having, your sister with breast cancer. You've got that 50-50 chance. I didn't want to go through this again. Yeah. I just wanted to get it done and over with. And it was one of those where, hey, if insurance is going to pay for it to do both, then I'm going to do it so I don't have to live in fear every time I go for another mammogram.
And then tell me, at that point, you leave that visit, right? And then what?
I, kind of closed up a bit. Probably wasn't the best bet to do. I didn't know what to think, and then I made jokes of it, like, hey, if I got to go through breast cancer, at least I get 2 new boobs. Right. It's how I processed it.
Did it help?
It did, because I made jokes about it. I know I had like a little get together with my friends and stuff, like my 2 best friends, and we did this, before my mastectomy. We just had a party, we drank, we joked about it, like it was just like a fun time kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which helped me, but then like that night I didn't sleep because that's how I processed. I didn't sleep.
One of the things is I often, when I'm having discussions with my patients, obviously, we, I was reading it, I was watching this program prior to coming on, and one of the things that was interesting is this doctor tells this lady who obviously gets a diagnosis of cancer, and he goes, listen, yeah, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna lose your hair, but it's just hair. And she ended up writing a whole book called "It's Not Just Hair." And after I read that, I sat back and I thought to myself, we got to be who we are. And for me, I look at it on the other side of that of this deal. When I was actually doing the book series that I wrote, we would take stories. I've had stories like this, and I do believe that you've got to find whatever way it is inside you to kind of get past this, or it will eat you alive. And we made comments. I'm like, listen, girl, you're going to get a whole new set, man. This is going to be perfect. What, are you kidding me? And that was before I saw that. So I think you got to know who you're dealing with. I've known you, and I think we had a good enough relationship where I thought that made it better, but did it?
It did, like that joke, like of doing it, like it kind of helped me. But then at the same time, just your mind's your worst enemy, regardless.
Yeah.
It is one of those things of, and everybody is so set on with like the way they look and stuff like that, because I'm just as guilty. Like, there was a thing where when I started chemo that I could purchase a cold cap to keep my hair, but it was like a 50-50 shot, and it was like $1,000, but then you have to pay $200 each time you go through chemo to use this cold cap. And, Todd looked at me and he was just like, you don't need it. He's like, just do what you want to do. He's like, if you want the cap, then we'll try and figure a way to do it. But if I'm fine with you if you lose your hair or whatever. And it helped, like having somebody supportive like that. But man, when I shaved my head, I had my boys help me shave my head, because it hit home after that. Like, it was real. Like, and the next thing I go in for, I went for my first chemo. Sorry, I kind of jumped, but I went for my first chemo, and then that's when the doctor said, hey, you're going to lose your hair after your second chemo, so you might want to cut it short.
This before the mastectomy?
After.
Okay, so
whoops,
let's.
sorry.
That's all right. I like this. I want to start at the mastectomy though. So you go in. Here's the plan. Now you got to go get this procedure done.
Yes.
So you're going in that day. Tell me what that's like.
It was the biggest knot in my stomach I've ever had.
But one, you're getting rid of cancer.
Yes.
But on the other token, you're getting rid of part of yourself.
Yeah. And it wasn't like it was one of those where I just kept in the back of my head, like, okay, I'm going to get 2 new boobs. I'm going to get 2 new boobs. I'm not going to have to worry about it. I can go braless. I can, wear a bra if I want to. I could kind of, I just kept thinking of like the positive side of it.
Right.
And it helped me through it. It did, just to kind of think of little things like that. And then, some of my friends were just like, man, I want one of those. Can I get something? And I'm like, yeah, it's, get a boob job, no big deal. Let's do the mommy makeover. It's, happy-go-lucky. And I got everything down to that point where I was just like, I can do this. And I had to tell myself this over and over again. And then Todd would look at me, and I'd be like, a little tear would go down. I'd be like, I'm fine. I got this. And he's like, okay, and then
but we talked about it. You withdrew a little bit.
yeah, I did. Like,
Is that something that you needed to do, though?
I think so.
Just needed to come back, get in your own space, kind of get this.
Yes.
And some people, they kind of go to this whole new level where they change all their diet, cut down on sugar, do all the things that we know
Yes.
kind of help prevent that. Did you go through that, too, where you decided, all right, I got to change everything about my life?
No, well, so I'm kind of on that stage now, because before I was that autopilot, and I probably did the worst thing is that I drank. I drank more than I probably should have.
Was it an escape, though?
Yes.
Yeah, because people do that all the time. We're seeing that during this whole COVID thing where, people are home more, they're drinking, kind of getting away from the reality. And I don't know anybody who can really fault somebody necessarily for that, because if you've ever been left alone with your own thoughts and something is coming down the pipeline like that, I think that's relatively normal. I really do.
And it helped me sleep.
Yeah.
It helped me. I mean, it probably wasn't the greatest sleep because I still got up at like 3:30 in the morning, but it was one of those where I just finally went to sleep.
So you get into the OR, got your cap on,
Yep.
and are you pretty anxious to go ahead and just get to sleep and get it done?
Yes. I remember them telling me to count backwards, and I think it was count backwards from 10 or something like that.
They might as well just say 2 because you're not getting anywhere.
And I probably got to maybe 9, 8. I mean, I just remember I was out, and then I woke up in the room and was kind of looking around like, what happened, what's going on? And it's kind of like that feeling after I had my boys, because they were both C-sections. It's like you wake up and you're in this room and you're just kind of like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And I remember kind of like looking down like, okay, they were able to do it, like, because I got implants, everything done all at once.
They did it all at the same time.
All at the same time.
That had to be pretty, I would think it would be good psychologically, right? Because you look down, you're like, okay, wait a minute. Because you see when they do mastectomies in women who choose not to get that.
Yes.
It's just a completely different person, and I'm sure that's a whole entire psychological train that they've got to go on as well. Was that something that helped you?
It did, but the thing that I kind of it was hard for me is I just have scars going across. I mean, they took the nipple, they took everything, so I just have scars. And then after that point, it was, your body's really not your body anymore. I mean, I had doctors come in left and right, and it was like, open the shirt, let me see what's going on. I had drain tubes everywhere. I mean, I think the whole medical field has seen my new boobs before I've even seen them. And it's just that part of like, it's just really not your body anymore.
Is that good or bad?
I don't know. I'm still kind of processing it because I still have to go through doctor appointments. So it's a process in its own completely.
Yeah.
I know it. it took me a while to be in a relationship with my husband again because of it.
And that's important because, I'm actually bringing on a plastic surgeon. We're going to do a whole segment on this. And a lot of times after augmentation, people will say that. They'll be like, I got augmentation, but, I got my confidence, I got my all this, I got my all that. But cancer wasn't in the game, wasn't in the play. And I often wondered that, like, if it's due to a cancer, is that a psychological thing where it doesn't become your body any longer, or is it, or you think some people also look at it like, oh my goodness, I got the boobs I wanted now, the size I wanted, and I'm ready to roll. I don't know. It's quite interesting, but it seems like when you attach the cancer part to it, it's not like an augmentation.
It wasn't your choice.
Wasn't your choice. What a great statement.
It wasn't your choice. You had to go through it. I had the choice of saying no implants or implants. But then knowing me, I'm like, well, my shirts aren't going to fit me anymore. Not like, what do you mean? Like, no, I want the implants. If I'm going to have to go through it, I want the implants.
Do you think it made you do you think it made you feel still feminine by getting them?
Yes.
Do you regret that decision, or was that the only way you think you would have
I think that would turn out? I think it was. I don't regret getting them at all. It's more the part of, and it's that people looking at you kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like if I didn't have them, would somebody look at me weird, or like judge me or anything?
I know producer Chad always gets mad at me because I skip around all the time, but I don't care. So, yeah, what I think is incredible is you go through this thing where you don't even look the same. You were wearing the headband, you don't have any hair, you had no eyebrows. Although, by the way, I just got to say, your personality never changed, which is good. And I don't think it really does with you. But you go from this thing where people probably are looking, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, okay, I wonder what happened to her, or maybe even feel sympathetic or empathetic towards the situation. But now that you don't look like that, you got your hair back, got your eyebrows back, got all that back, does it make you far more empathetic now for people, having been through it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now that you look like everyone else, is that psychologically good for you?
It is. I think it's one of the part of, I do look at every girl's hair and being like, wow, I wish my hair was like that. And I focus more on like the hair part. And I watch movies and I'll be like, man, my hair was pretty long. Now I got this like curly thing going on that I don't really know what to do with.
Well, tell me, what was the most traumatic part for you? Was it the hair?
I think the hair was a big part because that's like the first thing that people see. And when I had to walk around with a cap, and it was my choice to wear the hat. I tried the wigs out and everything like that. It wasn't me,
I had a lady tell me one time in one of the stories I documented that the wig made her feel like someone else.
Yeah.
And she hated it. She said she would rather go without the hair and feel like her than to have a wig on and feel like someone else for the benefit of other people.
Yeah. Like, the wig made me more self-conscious because, I'd go through like these hot flashes and everything, and I'd be scratching my head, and I'm like, well, did I make it go up? Did I make it, does it look okay? And the hat just fit me.
Yeah. So you get to that point, and what are the doctors doing? You get the mastectomy, everything is doing good. Where do we go after that?
I get a port in, so that's where my chemo goes through. And they put it on my left side, right above my left breast. And then I start chemo. Right when my port got in, I probably had my first session about a week later.
Now, are they already telling you, listen, it went great?
Yes.
Surgery went well?
Yes. They said if I followed their plan and everything that they had, it would be like a 90% chance that it will not come back.
And how did that make you feel? Was that like, did you have that moment of, okay, I'm going to live?
Yes.
Or was it this moment of, Okay, I get a second chance to do everything right at this point.
It's basically I'm going to live and I get a second chance. And it's crazy because like you're going into chemo and you hear all these different stories and stuff, and you get in there, and I'll never forget, Todd's brother told me that whatever you do when you go into chemo, just be nice to those nurses. They didn't put you there. You will see so many people in that room that will be grumpy, be, mad, and would not, be polite to the nurses. And all they're doing is helping you get well. And I took that advice every time I stepped into that chemo room, because it's a whole nother world.
Yeah. But you're on the road to recovery.
Yes.
Are you sleeping better?
Yeah. I can't get my ass out of bed anymore.
Do you even yell at your kids anymore?
I do.
See, that doesn't change anything, does it? I have them all the time. I'm like, okay, I don't know if there's anything going to stop me from yelling at you. So, but you're psychologically much better at this point, knowing that the surgery went well.
Yes. But it's crazy because like when you're going through that journey, you're like on this autopilot. And I chose to work during this whole time. I chose to have my chemo every other Friday, which is a lesson learned that you probably want to have your chemo on a Wednesday, because then you can recover on the weekend and then you can go back to your life on Monday. But when you have it on a Friday, your Saturday and Sunday was good for me because I was able to keep up with my boys and be able to do things. But Monday I felt like crap. I just wanted to sleep. I wanted to, I didn't feel good. And then Tuesday I'd be back to normal.
I mean, I think a real true reality too is, when you look at all this kind of stuff, you also have to look at the life of that. And I know my 3 kids, like I'm the doctor in the house until something happens, and my wife's the doctor in the house, right? Yep. No one even asked me anything, right? And, for moms that especially taking care of those kids, it's unbelievable what you go through and how much energy you find. And obviously kudos to you for doing that. But again, I think the reason we do this, great. Maybe it's not good to do it on Friday.
Yeah, it's one of those that no one ever told me anything. Like they didn't tell me that I was going to be sick on like the 3rd day. Yeah. Because they pump you so much full of stuff, and you get steroids with it, nausea medication, all that kind of stuff. And then it's, you've got Saturday and Sunday when I was, feeling great. I was fine.
And tell me that experience for you. Was that one of the tougher parts, the chemo?
My body actually handled chemo pretty good. I had like a couple of days that I didn't feel good or anything, and my doctor would always say, just pop a pill and, you'd be fine. I learned you're not supposed to eat spicy food either after chemo, because guaranteed it's going to be coming up. But my body did pretty good on chemo.
So, and how long was your chemo?
I had 8 sessions. So I had it every other Friday.
So that's 4 months, though, if you're doing every other. So that's a duration of time out of your life. How were you then psychologically? I mean, you know that now more likely than not you're going to survive this thing. Mm-hmm. Now it's a pain in the ass because you got to go every other Friday and being sick and run down. Yes. But were you still pretty decent?
I was. I feel I was. I still was able to keep up with stuff. My doctor even told me I could, he'll write me a letter to get out of work and to just do what I need to do and just do my appointments. But I couldn't. If I sat home during this whole thing, and knowing me, my mind is my worst enemy. Yeah. And I would have thought everything under the sun, and then I would cry most of the time or get depressed.
Yeah, so working for you was kind of a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, being able to go to work and kind of get away from it, and potentially even have cheerleaders behind you, right?
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of support from family and friends?
I did.
Because that's huge.
Yes.
That's huge. I think, again, when you see this game, it's a big psychological game as well. And you always find that the most successful are the people who have a positive attitude and positive people around them. But it didn't stop with chemo.
No.
Then you had to do radiation.
Yes.
Didn't know anything about it, I'm assuming?
I kind of did because my mom went through it.
Okay.
So she kind of let me know kind of what to do or what to think of kind of thing. And it took me longer to drive there than it did for the radiation.
Yeah. But they were telling you, well, let's do the radiation and knock it out completely.
Yes.
And you're like, I'm on. Let's
Yes.
do this thing.
So I did it Monday through Friday, every day at 3 o'clock.
For how long?
I think it was 5 weeks.
Okay. Every day for 5 weeks.
Every day for 5 weeks. I had to leave work early every day for 5 weeks.
And was your job pretty good about doing that?
They were.
God
yeah.
bless them. Good
Yeah.
people. That's good people.
Yeah.
Because again, if you haven't had it, right, you just don't know. It's the
Yeah.
way it is. So you get done with radiation, then what do they tell you?
They tell me that I got to follow up with my oncologist, and we'll go from there.
And that's where we're at today, right?
Basically, I mean, I got the all clear that I'm cancer free. I got that in June because technically, June 27th it was for a full year.
And what does that feel like?
It feels good, but at the same time, it's how do you know? Like I didn't even know I had it in the first place.
Is it still in the back of your mind?
Yes, I think it always will be.
Yeah, no, I think again, you know, what we do at True Talks is we tell the truth, and that's what's important because we want to find solutions or options for people. And I think part of the option that you had was staying busy. Busy was a good thing for you.
Yeah.
But as much as you got to trust the medical system to get rid of the cancer, you also have to trust them that you're all clear.
I know.
So, do you live your life any differently?
Well, I would like to, but with this COVID thing going on,
Than
it's like a
COVID.
whole another year of being stuck. So I'm I think that's, my goal was that had like this cancer-free trip planned. We had, stuff going. We were, planning some stuff to do this year. And then everything got canceled just like it did last year. So I think, to me, that's my psychological thing going on in my own head, where I can't even get back to normal because I don't even know what normal is yet.
Yeah, didn't get to quite celebrate it.
Correct.
And type stuff. I know again, that's a whole nother topic,
Yeah.
a whole nother podcast, right? How COVID has done this. I mean, people just don't understand that there are people inside that need to be gone, need to be outside, need to be back in the general public doing things. But it is where we're at, it is what it is where we're at. So where do you feel like, or what do you feel like the moment you can escape the prison of COVID? Are you going to enjoy life a little differently?
Yes.
How so?
Not be so serious. I mean, granted, I joke around and, I do kind of have fun and everything like that, but I want to be more spontaneous. I want to go back to how I was when I was like in my 20s, where it was just like, let's just do a quick trip. Let's go, go camping. Let's do this. Like, I want my boys to enjoy it because I think now watching me go through some of that stuff, it's kind of set them back a bit.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I kind of wanted to go through at the end of this. Like, I know your husband. I know he's a quiet guy. At least he seems like it to me. I know for me, when we had the scare, I learned a lot about myself. I'm a maniac, right? I was like, all right, what are we going to do? We're going to do it now. We got to have it done by Wednesday. I'm looking for all the oncologists around the world that I know I can get in contact with. It's a panic mode for me. Now, everybody handles it differently. But for the kids, I mean, do they say anything?
They didn't really say too much. They did comment on me not having hair. They wish that I had hair. It was one of those that I think my youngest, he didn't quite know what was going on. Like, I don't think he felt anything that was going on. He knew that Grandma stepped up and took him to your office all the time,
Right.
and picked him up from school and stuff. And he cuddled with me a lot during that time. My oldest, Ethan, kind of is my worrier.
Yeah.
And I think this last year he has turned into the worrier of the family, of what's going to happen and what's going on.
It hits everyone differently, right? But the cool part is all of a sudden you get this incredible perception now.
Yeah.
that you probably didn't have before. He might have been a warrior and you didn't really know until something like this happens. It's the same thing as when we go on trips. My little guy, he's the one that always is like, he always worries about us being gone. Our daughter, we're like, oh, she could care less. No,
Yeah.
she's the one that's always like calling us every 5 minutes to find out what's going on, right? So you learn an incredible amount. Is your relationship with Todd back to normal?
It is.
For you?
For the most part. Still working on it because I kind of shut down more. And that I'm trying to work on.
Yeah, but it's working.
Yes.
And especially if you get out of the COVID house, it would probably be much better. I mean, it is so inspiring, and I thank you so much for just your truth and honesty. I mean, what we do here is we want to get out a story so that other people can learn something from it. And I can only imagine, as you and I talked a little bit about it off camera, you know, we just did a podcast on a guy getting ready to win the world championship, right? And you know, we go through his whole story and how he had this kind of tough upbringing, and he's going to fight, you know, to beat this guy. But at the end of the day, on Saturday night, end of round 12, you either win or you lose. So you either get some money or you don't get as much money. This is a different fight.
Yep.
This fight is now for the real deal. And I think you've handled it incredibly gracefully. I did get to see it all the way through.
That is true.
And this is the reason I wanted to run this, because it affected me emotionally. I love you. I love your whole family, even your dad. Who I know he's going to listen to this. I'm sure he's out cleaning his car right now. I like to tease him. But no, I mean, it's just where you were at and where you came through. At least from what I saw, was extremely graceful. I obviously have a little bit different personality. I like to find the humor in it. For me, it's about finding something to make a person smile, finding something to make them kind of get rid of it. So if I did say something about it's only hair after learning that, I'm sorry about that. But it was always to me about making
but you
me laugh.
always made me laugh, though. It's okay.
Well, that's good, because I always wanted to, because I think smiling and laughing and getting through this thing we call life.
Yes.
But I do believe you got to second go. And I think that's got to feel good.
It does. And it's nice when you have like those people that make you laugh, that doesn't like kind of talk down to you, like where they don't look you in the eye because they know you're going through something and they don't ask you about it. So they kind of do that, hi, how's the weather? Kind of, you know.
Yeah.
And that's not what I mean, I was always open and honest when anybody asked me about, you know, what's going on. Why are you wearing a hat? Are you sick? You know, I mean, I told them, I mean, now I'm going through lymphedema and I have a glove on that I have to wear. And it's just...
So when I said, are you dressing up like Michael Jackson, was that funny or was that not funny?
It was funny because I want to bedazzle my glove, actually. So, you know.
I tell you what, Jill, thank you so much, for coming on Truth Talks. Thank you so much for telling this story. I know you were even a little nervous coming in here. So you're a little bit of a worrier and kind of nervous, Nelly,
yes,
too.
I know. Yeah, that's part of the change. I got to work on that.
But I tell you what, and I believe this with 100% of my fibers, that there's going to be somebody that's watching this that's just got the mammogram and they're getting the call back. And you survived this thing. You absolutely killed it. And I think that, you know, it's something to be celebrated. And I think you're gonna influence somebody to have that positive attitude. Just keep life going, make it good. And I'm proud of you. I'm glad you went through it with the grace you did.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course.